How many dreams have you abandoned because your excuses sounded reasonable? Think about that for a moment. Not the excuses you knew were weak, the ones that felt convincing, the ones that felt responsible, the ones that felt true. Most people don't fail because of obvious lies. They fail because of believable limitation. Excuses aren't pure fabrications. They are fragments of truth that disguise themselves as full explanations. They contain just enough reality to keep you from questioning them and just enough comfort to keep you from growing. But understand this clearly. When you justify your limitations, you reinforce them. Every time you defend an excuse, you strengthen the very barrier that is holding you back. I want to paint you a scene I've watched play out more times than I can count. Two individuals start with similar opportunities. The first is bright, talented, capable. They have the intelligence and the resources to build something meaningful, but they also carry a subtle habit. Every challenge is met with a perfectly reasonable explanation. It's not the right time. I'm too tired today. Things are complicated right now. I'll begin when I feel more prepared. The excuses always shift, always sound thoughtful, always feel justified. And so, despite their potential, they remain exactly where they are, stuck at the starting line, waiting for a perfect moment that never arrives. The second person begins with far fewer advantages. Less education, fewer connections, fewer resources, but they carry something far more powerful, the refusal to negotiate with excuses. They take imperfect steps. They begin before they feel ready. They work with what they have instead of waiting for what they wish they had. And while the first person thinks, analyzes, delays, and explains, the second person moves. Day after day, quietly and steadily, they build momentum while the talented one stays stationary. Over time, the gap becomes enormous. Not because one had more ability, but because one had fewer excuses. Here's the painful truth that each of us must confront. You're not failing because you lack ability. You're failing because you're protecting comfort. Excuses are the mind's way of shielding you from discomfort, challenge, uncertainty, and responsibility. They feel safe, but they cost you your future. If you listen closely to your excuses, you'll notice they all have one thing in common. They point outward instead of inward. They explain why you can't move forward rather than asking how you could. They shift the responsibility away from your choices and onto circumstances, people, timing, or feelings. And the moment responsibility leaves your hands, so does your power. In this message, I want to help you reclaim that power, not someday, but now. I want to help you see excuses for what they truly are, barriers you've unknowingly agreed to. And I want to give you a system to eliminate them, replace them with principle-centered choices, and begin building what I call personal victory, the quiet, private triumphs that make public success possible. By the time we finish, you will understand how to stop negotiating with your excuses, how to stop abandoning your potential, and how to start living as someone capable of consistent, deliberate, meaningful action. This is your awakening. This is your invitation to reclaim responsibility, reclaim character, and reclaim your future. Today, we stop accepting excuses and we start building victory from the inside out. Excuses feel true because they are crafted by one of the most powerful forces inside you, the part of your mind designed to protect your ego. When change threatens your comfort, when growth threatens your identity, when progress demands responsibility, the ego steps in with a subtle form of self-defense. It creates a story, a reason that justifies staying exactly where you are. These stories feel wise, logical, and even responsible, but their real purpose is to prevent you from confronting discomfort. They are emotional armor disguised as rational thought. The brain is not naturally built for growth. It is built for survival. It will always prefer the known over the unknown, the familiar over the challenging, and the comfortable over the transformative. When you face a moment where you must stretch, commit, or rise, the brain looks for a way to retreat to safety. Excuses become that escape route. They allow you to avoid the temporary discomfort of change while pretending to remain in control. But in reality, you are surrendering control quietly and repeatedly. Excuses also serve as mechanisms of emotional self-preservation. When you tell yourself you can't, you avoid the risk of failing. When you tell yourself it's not the right moment, you avoid the anxiety of starting. When you say you're not disciplined, you avoid the responsibility of training your will. The mind would rather live with a limiting belief than confront the vulnerability of growth. And so excuses become shields that protect your feelings but destroy your future. Consider some of the most common excuses people give themselves. I don't have time. On the surface, it sounds realistic. Life is busy. Responsibilities pile up. But the truth is usually simpler. It's not a lack of time. It's a lack of priority. Time has not been stolen from you. You have not claimed it. Another excuse. It's not the right moment. It sounds measured, thoughtful, even strategic. But in most cases, it's simply fear wearing the mask of wisdom. If you wait for the perfect moment, life will pass you by. And then there's the familiar identity-based excuse. I'm just not disciplined. People say it as if it were a permanent trait. But discipline is not a personality, it's a skill. It is built through training, not inherited through genetics. You're not undisciplined. You're unpracticed. These excuses feel comfortable because they remove confrontation. They let you avoid acknowledging your own power, the same power that might require effort, vulnerability, or courage to develop. But the consequences of living this way are far more damaging than the growth you're avoiding. Excuses create weak habits because habits are the result of repeated choices. When you justify inaction, you train yourself to retreat rather than advance. Over time, your habit becomes hesitation. Excuses damage relationships because someone who always explains their limitations eventually begins to blame others, deflect responsibility, and justify poor behavior. Trust erodes when excuses grow. Integrity begins to fracture. Excuses fragment your self-image because deep down, you know when you're settling for less than you're capable of. That quiet awareness creates guilt, frustration, and internal conflict. You begin to doubt yourself not because you lack ability, but because you've abandoned responsibility. And perhaps most painfully, excuses cause the repeated loss of opportunity. Not once, not twice, but over and over again. Opportunities are doors, and excuses keep you from walking through them. After enough time, the accumulation of missed chances creates a life defined not by what you did, but by what you avoided. All of this leads to a devastating emotional consequence, a constant sense of stagnation. You feel stuck, but you're not stuck. You're halted by stories you keep telling yourself. And the more you repeat them, the more true they feel. I want you to remember this. Every excuse steals a small piece of your future. Not in dramatic ways, usually in quiet, invisible ways that you only recognize years later. Excuses take inches from your dreams until eventually your dreams shrink to fit your excuses. And this is why I speak to you firmly now. If you don't eliminate your excuses, you will live a life designed by fear rather than by your values. Fear will dictate what you attempt. Fear will dictate what you become. And fear will dictate what you leave behind. But once you see excuses for what they are, protective stories that keep you from your potential, you can choose differently. And that choice is the beginning of personal victory. Before you can change your results, you must change the person who produces them. And this leads us to one of the most important principles in all personal development, the principle of personal victory. Personal victory is the quiet, invisible triumph that happens long before success becomes visible to the world. It is the internal conquest of your own weaknesses, excuses, impulses, and fears. It is the victory you win privately that makes every public victory possible. Personal victory is not loud. It is not glamorous. It doesn't come with applause or recognition. It happens in small moments, moments where no one is watching, no one is judging, no one is validating you. It is built through the mastery of character, through daily consistency, through making choices based on values instead of emotions. It is the slow, steady construction of the person you are becoming when the world isn't looking. People often admire extraordinary achievements, athletes, leaders, creators, entrepreneurs, and assume that greatness is built on talent or opportunity. But if you could see behind the curtain of any extraordinary life, you would discover thousands of small, invisible victories that no one noticed. Victories over laziness, victories over fear, victories over discouragement, victories over the temptation to settle. Public success is simply the accumulation of private triumphs. And yet, the world is full of people who try to win public victories without first winning the private ones. They want success without discipline, influence without integrity, output without inner order. But life doesn't work that way. If you want a public victory, you must first win the private battle. The outer world cannot stay strong if the inner world is weak. Every personal victory is built on 3 pillars. The first is character mastery. This is the ability to govern yourself, to act on principle rather than impulse, to choose what is right instead of what is easy, to keep commitments to yourself even when they are inconvenient. Discipline, patience, courage, integrity, these are not traits you are born with. They are the result of repeatedly choosing who you want to be. The second pillar is daily consistency. Excellence is not the product of one big decision. It is the product of 1,000 small ones. When you choose to follow through, to rise instead of retreat, to focus instead of drift, you reinforce the identity of someone who can be trusted even by yourself. And the more you trust yourself, the stronger your character becomes. The third pillar is value-based action. Most people operate from their emotions, doing what they feel like, avoiding what they dislike, choosing based on mood rather than mission. But personal victory comes from choosing based on values. Your values are the compass. Your emotions are the weather. When the compass guides you, you remain on course even when the weather shifts. To understand personal victory more deeply, let me show you the 3 internal battles every person must win. The first battle is against comfort. Comfort is seductive. It tells you to stay where you are, to avoid the work, to protect your current identity. But comfort never produces growth. Every step towards your potential requires stepping beyond the familiar. Personal victory begins the moment you stop letting comfort negotiate your life. The second battle is against doubt. Doubt whispers that you're not capable, not prepared, not ready. But doubt is not truth. It is simply a reflection of your untrained identity. When you take action despite doubt, you strengthen the part of you that believes and weaken the part of you that fears. The third battle is against the world's urgency. Life will constantly try to pull you into distraction, noise, pressure, and expectations. If you do not guard your priorities, the world will decide them for you. Personal victory requires protecting your focus and aligning your time with what truly matters. Let me give you 2 examples that illustrate this principle clearly. Consider the athlete who stands victorious on the track. The race lasted seconds, but the victory was earned long before the starting gun. It was earned in the early mornings when they wanted to stay in bed but chose discipline. It was earned in the lonely practice sessions when no one was watching. It was earned in the silent decision to push one step further, again and again. The public celebration was simply the final expression of thousands of private victories. Now consider the leader who remains calm in a heated meeting, who listens instead of reacting, who responds with clarity instead of conflict. That moment of wisdom didn't begin in the meeting room. It began earlier that morning when they exercised self-control, centered themselves in their values, and chose the character they wanted to bring into the day. Their composure was not luck, it was preparation. This is the essence of personal victory. Everything meaningful you achieve outwardly is built on the person you choose to be inwardly. If you want a different life, you must first cultivate a different self. And that work, the private battle, is the foundation on which all success rests. Excuses lose their power the moment you take full responsibility. They do not survive in the presence of ownership. As long as you defend them, they remain strong. As soon as you claim responsibility, they begin to crumble. This is the turning point in personal growth, the moment you stop negotiating with your excuses and start confronting them with truth. Excuses crumble when you take full responsibility. Most people try to eliminate excuses by resisting them or suppressing them, but that approach only strengthens them. What you resist grows stronger. What you illuminate grows weaker. To remove excuses at the root, you must understand them, not ignore them. You must expose the function they're playing in your mind. And to do this, I want to give you a simple, powerful 4-step method, one that aligns with principle-centered living and trains you to choose character over comfort. The steps are: name it, claim it, tame it, replace it. First, name it. You cannot change what you refuse to acknowledge. The act of naming your excuse makes it visible, tangible, and honest. Instead of vaguely feeling resistance, you articulate it. My excuse is that I'm too tired. My excuse is that I don't have time. My excuse is that I'm afraid of failing. The moment you name it, you separate yourself from it. You are no longer the excuse. You are the observer of it. Second, claim it. Ownership is the heart of transformation. Claiming the excuse means recognizing that it originates in you, not in your schedule, not in your circumstances, not in other people. You say, this is my excuse, and I am the one choosing it. This is not self-blame. It is self-empowerment. When you claim responsibility, you reclaim agency. You stop giving your future to external factors and start placing it back into your own hands. Third, tame it. Every excuse has an emotional purpose. It protects you from discomfort, uncertainty, or vulnerability. When you tame an excuse, you examine that purpose. Why does my mind want this excuse? What discomfort am I avoiding? What fear is hiding behind this justification? Once you understand the emotional function, the excuse loses its strength. You realize it is not a truth, it is a shield. And shields can be put down when they no longer serve you. Fourth, replace it. Growth does not happen by removing behavior, it happens by replacing it. You substitute the excuse with a value-based choice. If the excuse is I don't have energy, the replacement is I will improve the habits that shape my energy. If the excuse is I don't have time, the replacement is I will prioritize what matters and eliminate what doesn't. If the excuse is I can't change, the ESPL. Replacement is I will train my will through small, consistent actions. You move from justification to intention, from passivity to principle. Let me show you how this works in real life. Someone says, I don't have energy, but the truth, when you look deeper, is that their habits are disorganized. Their sleep is irregular. Their diet is unbalanced. Their mind is overstimulated. The problem is not lack of energy, it is lack of alignment. And as soon as they stop telling the story and start addressing the cause, their life begins to shift. Someone else says, I don't have time. But if you look at their day, you find hours lost to distractions, urgency, and noise. Their time isn't missing, it's mismanaged. They're allowing urgency to hijack their priorities. Responsibility restores control, excuses remove it. Another person says, I just can't change. But no one is incapable of change. Change is simply the repeated training of the will. What they truly mean is, I've never strengthened my will because it's uncomfortable. They're not lacking capability, they're lacking practice. Now, I want to introduce one of the most powerful tools you can use, what I call the excuse breaker choice. This is a single, small, intentional action you take the moment your mind produces an excuse. It doesn't need to be big. In fact, it should be small enough that you can do it, even when you don't feel ready. 5 minutes of focus, one message sent, one step taken, one commitment honored. The goal is not the size of the action, it is the identity you reinforce. Each micro decision is a vote for who you want to become. And here's the truth you must carry with you. Your excuses may sound like protection, but they are prisons. They keep you safe from discomfort, but locked away from your potential. They guard you from fear, but block you from freedom. They shield you from effort, but rob you of growth. Excuses are not obstacles, they are choices. And when you choose responsibility, you choose liberation. When you choose values over comfort, you choose personal victory. When you choose action over justification, you choose the life you were meant to live. This is the moment to dismantle excuses at the root and rebuild yourself on the foundation of principles, integrity, and inner strength. Excuses lose their power not through inspiration alone, but through structure. Lasting change requires a system, a method that transforms intention into action, values into behavior, and character into consistency. To help you build personal victory day by day, I want to give you a simple but profound 5-step process. These steps are small, practical, and deeply principle-centered. Together, they form what I call the personal victory system. The first step is pause and observe. Before you follow an excuse, you must see it. Most excuses operate automatically, quietly shaping your choices without your awareness. A 5-second pause interrupts that pattern. In that brief space, you ask yourself, what is the excuse I'm about to obey? This pause creates enough distance for awareness to enter. It opens the gap between stimulus and response, allowing you to choose instead of react. This simple moment of observation is the beginning of freedom, because what you observe, you can change. The second step is ask the victory question. When you face a moment of resistance, do not ask, what do I feel like doing? That question enslaves you to emotion. Instead, ask, what would the best version of me choose right now? This question reconnects you to your values. It reminds you of the person you're trying to become, not the impulses you're trying to overcome. Values create direction. Emotions create distraction. When you align your choices with your values, even small actions become powerful steps toward personal victory. The third step is choose one hard thing. Willpower doesn't grow through comfort, it grows through challenge. Each day, choose one small difficult action that strengthens your character. It doesn't need to be dramatic. It only needs to require effort. Wake up 5 minutes earlier. Finish a task you've been avoiding. Respond with calm when your emotions want to react. Each hard thing you choose reinforces the identity of someone who does not retreat from difficulty. The muscles of the will are trained in small daily reps. These little victories are the bricks from which great character is built. The fourth step is micro-integrity practice. Integrity begins with keeping promises to yourself. Many people trust others more than they trust themselves because they've repeatedly broken their own commitments. But every time you honor a small promise, drink the water, finish the task, speak with kindness, follow your plan, you rebuild self-trust. And self-trust is the foundation of personal victory. A person with internal integrity has already won before the day even begins. Micro-integrity is not about perfection. It's about alignment. It's about proving to yourself that your word has weight. The fifth step is daily victory reflection. At the end of the day, take a moment, just a few minutes, to reflect on your choices. Ask yourself 3 simple questions. 1, where did I overcome an excuse today? 2, where did I justify one? 3, what value did I live today? Reflection turns experience into insight and insight into growth. When you review your choices, you transform your day into a lesson. And when you repeat this process consistently, you build an identity rooted in awareness, intention, and continual improvement. This is how personal victory becomes a lifestyle rather than a momentary motivation. Now, let me share a few complementary tools that amplify the effectiveness of this system. A Small Wins Journal helps you track your daily victories, reinforcing progress and strengthening identity. The Excuse to Action Transformation Table trains your mind to immediately convert excuses into value-centered choices. A Personal Mission Whisper, a short phrase read each morning, reconnects you to your purpose and keeps your character at the forefront of your day. And a 2-minute focus ritual, a brief moment of grounding, breathing, and setting intention protects your mind from urgency and reactivity. These tools are simple, but they are powerful. They give structure to your commitment, stability to your choices, and clarity to your actions. With them, you build a life not based on reaction, but on principle. A life not shaped by excuses, but by character. a life grounded in daily victories rather than occasional inspiration. The expected result of this system is profound: a stronger character, a more integrated identity, and a growing sense of inner leadership. You begin to feel guided by purpose rather than pulled by emotion. You begin to act from values rather than excuses. And as these victories accumulate, your entire life begins to shift from the inside outward. Personal victory is not about perfection. It is about direction. It is the journey of becoming someone who leads themselves with strength, clarity, and integrity. And this system gives you the tools to begin that journey today. Excuses fade the moment character rises to take their place. They lose their power when you become someone who no longer needs them. This is why I often say, excuses die when character is born. When you strengthen your character, your excuses no longer find a home in you. They dissolve in the presence of integrity, intention, and inner strength. And today, you stand at the threshold of that transformation. I want you to imagine the person you are becoming, the new you that emerges when personal victory becomes a daily practice. This new version of you is not built on inspiration alone, but on the quiet consistency of someone who honors their commitments, someone who acts from principle instead of impulse, someone who chooses responsibility over comfort. You become a person who follows through, a person who can trust themselves, a person who doesn't hide behind explanations, but moves forward with courage. This new you is someone who leads their life. You are no longer pushed around by emotions, circumstances, or excuses. You set direction instead of waiting for motivation. You initiate instead of react. You build rather than delay. Leadership stops being something external and becomes the way you govern your own choices, your own time, your own habits, your own identity. That is true leadership, the leadership of the self. And something powerful happens when you live this way. You begin to inspire others quietly without trying. People around you feel the steadiness in your character. They notice your calm in moments of tension. They watch your discipline, your responsibility, your integrity. You lead not with words, but with coherence. You become a source of strength in a world full of noise, a presence of clarity amidst confusion. This is one of the greatest gifts you can offer others, the silent influence of a life well lived. But that transformation does not begin tomorrow, or next month, or someday when life feels easier. It begins now with one internal commitment. So let me speak to you directly from a place of sincerity and conviction. Today, stop negotiating with your excuses. Today, begin your personal victory. You do not need to conquer everything at once. You need only to take one step, one choice aligned with your values, one act that expresses the person you want to become. That single choice begins the momentum of change. Before we close, I want to give you one final affirmation to carry with you. Let it become a guiding phrase, a reminder of your power to choose. Every choice is a vote for who I become. And today, I choose strength. Say it with intention. Let it settle into your identity. Because each choice, no matter how small, shapes the direction of your life. And choosing strength even once begins the process of becoming someone strong. This is not the end of your journey. It is the beginning of a new chapter, one where excuses no longer hold authority, and where character becomes the foundation of everything you do. In the next message, we will go deeper into the habits, mission, and principles that sustain this new identity. Continue with me, and let's build a life of purpose, integrity, and personal victory, one choice at a time.